Sathya Loka Seva Gurukulam online classes. Today, we'll be continuing with the chapter Nutrition in Animals. This is the second part of this chapter. Today, we'll be learning about the buccal cavity or the mouth. First of all, let's have a look at the contents of today's part. Nutrition in humans, introduction to mouth and buccal cavity, the teeth, tooth decay, salivary gland, and the tongue. Nutrition in humans. Nutrition in humans is a complex process involving the following process. So, what are the various processes involved when it comes to nutrition in humans? So, the moment we take in food, so what is that process called? So, the process of taking in food into the body is called ingestion. So, first of all, we are taking in the food. So, that is the very first step when it comes to nutrition in humans. Now, what happens once the food has been ingested? Then the food needs to be digested. So, the process of breakdown of complex molecules into simple soluble ones is known as digestion. So, first of all, we have taken in the food, and that process of taking in food is known as ingestion. Then the food goes into the stomach, then the small intestine, and over here the second process occurs, and that is digestion. Then once the food is digested, the food is absorbed. Now the process by which the digested food is absorbed by the walls of the small intestine, from where it gets passed on into the blood. So this process is known as absorption. So we have taken in the food is digested, then the food is absorbed by the walls of small intestine, and then from there the food is passed on into the blood. So once the food has reached the blood will transport this food to all the cells of the body. So what will these cells of the body do once they receive this digested food? They will utilize it. So this process of utilizing the food is known as assimilation. The process by which the absorbed food is utilized by the body for growth and formation of body parts is known as assimilation. And what happens to the leftover substances? They are egested. So the process by which the fecal matter is removed from the body through the anus from time to time is known as egestion. So what is included in nutrition when it comes to humans? It involves these 5 processes. That is taking in food, which is called ingestion. Then the food is digested, that is digestion. Then the digested food is absorbed. This process is known as absorption. The absorbed food is then utilized by the body parts, and this process of utilizing it is known as assimilation, and the leftover substance or matter is removed from our body through anus, and this process is known as egestion. Moving ahead, in the previous part we had studied about various parts of digestive tract. They are buccal cavity or mouth, esophagus or the food pipe, then the stomach, then small intestine, large intestine, rectum, and then anus. So this is the passage of food in our body. The food goes from the buccal cavity to the esophagus, then from esophagus to small intestine to stomach, then to small intestine, then to large intestine, then to rectum, and then anus. Now we have studied that these are the various parts of the digestive tract. But what happens to the food in these various parts of the digestive system? This is what we are going to study in this chapter ahead. In today's part, we will be only studying about what happens to the food in our mouth. So let's start. The mouth or the buccal cavity. In our buccal cavity, there are three very important parts. What are they? They are the teeth, the tongue, and the salivary gland. So when we have to study about our mouth, we'll be studying about these three parts: the mouth, the tongue, the teeth, and the salivary gland in detail. So our buccal cavity or mouth contains the teeth and the tongue. Salivary glands are also present in the mouth. First of all, let's discuss about the teeth. What do we use our teeth for? Yes, we use it to chew the food. So, we chew the food with the teeth and break it down mechanically into smaller pieces. So, the food is broken down into smaller pieces in our mouth, and this is done using our teeth. Another thing that you can notice about our teeth in this diagram is that each tooth is embedded or is rooted in a separate socket. So this tooth has a separate socket and it is embedded here or it is rooted here. Likewise, all teeth, they are rooted in a separate socket, right? So this is the next point. The tooth is rooted in a separate socket in the gum. So each tooth has a separate socket in which it is embedded or rooted in the gum. So this is another characteristic of our teeth. Then next is that we humans have two sets of teeth. So you must be remembering those days when your tooth is shaking a little bit and then finally it comes out. So the tooth which has come out is called the milk teeth. And after few months you will see that that tooth has been totally replaced by another tooth. Now that one is the permanent tooth. So we humans, we have two sets of teeth. Let's discuss about that. The first set of teeth are 20. So the first set of teeth are 20 in number, and they are small teeth and they are also known as milk teeth. Then once the child is about 6 years old, a second set of 32 large teeth called permanent teeth, they start coming out, and eventually they will replace all these small milk teeth. We have different types of teeth in our mouth. You will see that all the teeth are not similar in shape and sizes. So we humans have 4 different types of teeth that perform different functions. Let's have a look at them. As you can see in this image over here, the first set of teeth are the incisors. So these are 4 in the lower jaw and 4 in the upper jaw. So the first 4 teeth in the upper jaw, and the ones in the front in the upper jaw and the ones in the front in the lower jaw, they are called incisors. What do we use them for? Try thinking. When do we use these teeth? Imagine you have an entire apple with you and now you want to eat that apple. So what will you do with that apple is that you will bite it. So for biting, which teeth will you use? You will bite that entire apple with your incisors. You will use your incisors to bite a piece out of that apple. So incisors, they are used for biting and cutting food. Now the second type of teeth that you can see in this diagram are the canines. As you can see over here, the canines. Now what do we use these canines for? Try to think, when do we use these type of teeth? Okay, now imagine you have a stick, a sugar cane stick with you, and you want to enjoy eating that juicy sugar cane stick. Now sugar cane has tough fibers in it, so you will have to tear off those tough fibers in order to chew the juicy sugar cane later. So with which teeth will you tear those fibers of sugar cane? Yes, we'll use canine. So canines are used for piercing and tearing food. Then in the diagram you can see after canines there are premolars, and then in the end there are molars. As you can see, they are a little broader, right? So when do we use our premolars and molars? Try to guess. Now imagine you are having popcorn. Which tooth will you use for chewing the popcorn? Yes, we'll be using our molars and premolars. Now again imagine that you have a few peanuts with you. Which tooth will you use to chew and grind those peanuts? Again, we'll be using our premolars and molars. So the function of premolars and molars is the same, that they are used for chewing and grinding food. Now let's see in what numbers are these different tooth or different teeth present in us. So the first type of teeth, they are incisors and they are used for cutting and biting. Now try counting how many incisors are there in your lower jaw and how many incisors are there in your upper jaw. So they are 4 in lower and 4 in upper. So in total we have 8 incisors. Now what about canines? Canines, firstly, they are used for piercing and tearing. Now count how many canines are there in your upper jaw and in your lower jaw. So we have 2 canines in our upper jaw and 2 canines in our lower jaw, which makes it 2 in upper, 2 in lower, which is equals to 4 in total. Now premolars and molars. Their function, as we know, is chewing and grinding. So over here there is a little exception, because in children and in adults their number varies. So in case all your permanent teeth have come, then your premolars and molars numbers will vary. But if you still have milk teeth, then it will vary. So let's see what are their numbers. So in children, premolars are absent, while in adults we have 4 premolars in our lower jaw and 4 premolars in our upper jaw. So we have 2 premolars here, 2 premolars over in the lower jaw on the either sides. So 4 premolars in our lower jaw, and then we have 2 premolars in the upper jaw on the right hand side, then 2 premolars on the left hand side, so 4 in the upper jaw. So which makes a total of 8 premolars in adults. So I'll just write it down over here. So 8 premolars. Then we'll see. And in children, how many premolars are there? 0 in total. Now let's talk about molars. So there are, in children, there are 2 molars in the left side of the lower jaw and 2 molars on the right side of the lower jaw. So how many molars are there in the lower jaw in children? So 4. And likewise in the upper jaw also in children, 2 molars on the either sides. So a total of how many molars are there in children? 8. Okay, so again I'll just write it down over here. 8. Now what about in adults? So we have 3 molars on either side of the lower jaw and 3 molars on either side of our upper jaw. So 6 plus 6, which is 12. So adults have 12 molars in total. So 0 plus 8 is equals to 8 only. So children have only 8 molars, while in adults there are 8 premolars and 12 molars. So which is 20 in total. So if I ask you this question, which type of teeth are absent in children? So what will your answer be? Premolars are absent in children. And which type of teeth vary in number in adults and in children? So molars vary in number in adults and in children. I hope it is clear from this table now. Now, did you know this? Over here you can see a labeling. This labeling, it's written enamel over here. And there's something really special about this part of the tooth called enamel. What is it? That enamel is the hardest substance in the human body and it covers the outer portion of the teeth. So this covering of our tooth is called enamel, and it is the hardest substance present in the human body. It is made up of mineral salts and keratin, and it can even withstand very high pressure. So could you imagine that the hardest substance in your body is actually the outer covering of your teeth? And what is it called? It is called enamel. Now over here in this set of teeth, you can see a little blackish thing. So what do you think led to this condition called tooth decay? Let's study that. So normally the bacteria are present in our tooth or in our mouth, but they are not harmful to us. But if we do not maintain dental hygiene, like if we do not brush our teeth, so these harmful bacteria, they begin to live and grow in it. So these bacteria, they'll start multiplying more if we don't maintain our dental hygiene. So these bacteria break down the sugar present in our teeth. So whatever food we have had, so the sugar, whichever is left in our teeth, that will be the bacteria will start breaking that sugar down, and they will release an acid, and that acid will damage the teeth, and it will lead to tooth decay. So chocolates, sweets, soft drinks and other sugar products are a major culprit for tooth decay. Why? Because the bacteria present in our mouth, they will feed upon the leftover sweet in our mouth, and once they feed on it, they release an acid, and that acid leads to tooth decay. So how can we protect the teeth from tooth decay? We need to clean the teeth with brush or datun and dental floss at least twice a day. I'm sure you all must be brushing your teeth twice a day. And we should also rinse our mouth after every meal. Now let's talk about and study about salivary glands. So we have 3 pairs of salivary gland, as you can see in this diagram over here. One you can see over here, we have a pair of salivary glands over here. Then the second pair is here, and then the third one is over here. So our mouth has salivary glands, and salivary glands, they secrete saliva. The saliva breaks down the starch into sugars. So whatever food that we eat, the starch in that food is converted into sugar with the help of saliva. So it helps in the breakdown of starch into sugar. So you can see the digestion of starch has already started in our mouth, and it has started because of the saliva present in our mouth. Now let's study about the tongue. Now tongue is a fleshy muscular organ. So it is a muscular organ attached to the floor of the buccal cavity. It is free at the front and can be moved in all directions, as we know. Now, do you know what are the various functions of the tongue? Let's study that. We use our tongue for talking and for tasting food. Yes, and then we use it to mix the saliva with the food during chewing. So once the saliva is secreted from the salivary glands, it needs to be mixed with the food. So our tongue helps in mixing the food and saliva together. Then it also helps us in swallowing the food. Just try swallowing and you will realize that you are using your tongue to swallow food. Now these are the uses or the functions of the tongue. But according to Swami, according to Sri Sathya Sai Baba, he says that our tongue is liable to commit 4 errors. So what are those 4 errors that Swami is talking about? It is uttering falsehood, spreading rumors or telling lies, then scandalizing, that is gossiping, then finding fault with others, and excessive speech. So we should not use our tongue to do these 4 things. And what should we use our tongue to do? We should use our tongue to speak only necessary things, for tasting food, then to mix our food with saliva and to swallow food. These are the things that you should use our tongue for, and not for speaking lies, gossiping, and finding faults in others, and speaking excessively. And all these have to be avoided if there is to be peace for the individual as well as for the society. So we should avoid these 4 things and only use our tongue for swallowing, mixing our food with saliva, and only necessary speaking. Our tongue has taste buds that detect different tastes of food. So we have 4 different types of taste buds that help us to know about sweet, sour, bitter, salty tastes associated with different types of food items. And the interesting thing is that these taste buds, like the one which is used to taste sweet, they will be only in one portion of the tongue. The one which is used to taste the bitter, they will be concentrated in one portion of the tongue. So let's see what are the various portions where the different types of taste buds are present. In the front, you have the taste buds that can taste sweet things. Then on the sides, on both the sides, you can taste salty things. While on the sides at the back behind, they are used for tasting sour things. Then at the end, utmost end of your tongue, are concentrated the taste buds which can detect bitter taste. Interesting, right? That our taste buds are concentrated in different areas to detect different tastes. Moving ahead, there is one activity for all of you. What you all need to do is, whenever you have a bread or a chapati during your lunch or dinner break, try to chew it for at least 3-4 minutes. And then you will find an interesting observation. And what that observation will be, you need to describe it. And then why is there a change in the taste? So what you'll notice is that the piece of chapati or bread that you're eating, initially it won't be sweet, but once you start biting it for almost 3-4 minutes, suddenly you will find that the chapati now tastes sweet. How did that happen? We studied that the starch gets converted into sugar in our mouth in the presence of saliva. So when saliva is secreted, the starch gets converted into sugar. So the piece of bread, chapati, has starch in it. And once you keep biting it, the saliva will break down that starch into sugar. And once it is broken down into sugar, now your chapati is no longer salty in taste. It is sugar. Now it will be sweet in taste. So next time you're having a piece of chapati, do try doing this activity. Have you ever wondered why we choke on our food? Sometimes when you eat in a hurry, or you are talking or laughing while eating, you may cough, you may get a hiccup, or you might get a choking sensation. Why does that happen? In this diagram over here, you can see that the air, that the nasal cavity and the food cavity, they have reached this common passage over here, right? So the answer to our question also lies over here only. So this happens when the food particle enters the windpipe. So now instead of going into the food pipe, which is this green one, instead of entering over here, the food has accidentally entered in the windpipe. And once that happens, we get this choking sensation. So the windpipe and the food pipe, they run adjacent to each other, as you can see in this diagram. In the throat region, the air and the food pipe. So in this throat region, the windpipe and the food pipe, we have a common passage. Normally what happens is that during swallowing, a flap-like valve closes this passage. So this passage of air gets closed by a flap when we swallow food. So the food cannot enter into this windpipe, and the food will only go into the food pipe. But when we laugh or we eat hurriedly, the flap might not close. So the food will accidentally enter the windpipe, which causes a choking sensation. So, whenever you're eating food, don't be in a hurry, don't talk, just eat the food peacefully and you won't find this problem. Now, let's check your understanding. Fill in the blanks. The main steps of nutrition in human are, I'm sure you know it and you remember it. It is, first of all, it is ingestion, followed by digestion, then absorption, assimilation and egestion. The second fill-up is the saliva secreted from the salivary glands break down dash into dash. So what does it break down? It breaks down the starch in the food into sugar, as we had studied in the activity that I told you. The third fill-up is we use dash for biting and cutting and dash for piercing and tearing. Try remembering which type of teeth we use for biting and cutting. Try remembering the apple example. We use our incisors for biting and cutting, and we use our canines for piercing and tearing. Now let's ponder over a thought, over a quote given by Sathya Sai Baba. So Swami said, "You must be able to get up with the same ease with which you sat down to have your food. If you sit down feeling light and feel heavy and difficult to get up after eating, you have taken more than you need, and it will develop tamasic qualities which promote dullness and laziness." So we need to eat moderately. We should not do overeating, as it will promote tamasic qualities in us, which are not good qualities. And moreover, even if you eat more, your digestive tract or your digestive system will have to work more, and so more energy will be used. So we should all eat moderately. This is all for today's class. Thank you so much. Om Shri Sai Ram.